Guys, Jimmy here. I've got a very, very special guest. So we've got Paul Meldrum on, who's going to be covering today how you can get really amazing results in your onboarding process. We're going to be focusing specifically in the first 28 days, which is so important for retention and also for coachability if you're able to get people these positive changes. So Paul, mate, thank you so much for jumping on. I guess for the guys who have never met you before, how long have you kind of been in the fitness industry for?
I've been in the fitness industry for 18 or 19 years. I've really got to check. Basically, as soon as I finished high school, I took a year off and then I got into the fitness industry just thinking it'd be a part-time thing, and it never changed. It was 100% go from day one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So I've only been in the fitness industry maybe like 12 years now, but you know, it's a long time when you forget, when you're like 18, 19, it's 17 years. Yeah. And mate, when you got into the fitness industry, when you were younger, were you like really passionate about training or nutrition, or how did that kind of come about when you finished school?
So when I was a kid, I was passionate about training to get better for sport. So like I seemed to enjoy training sessions better than the sports I played. And I did high level elite representative sport, track and field, swimming, basketball, soccer. I did most of them. Multi-sport, yeah, athlete. So not excellent at anything, but pretty good at most. And when I finished, when I was in high school, I started training in the gym. And then when I finished high school, I was training gym, but I got hurt. So I went and did my Cert 3, Cert 4, just because I was like, I like doing the gym. I don't know what I want to do at uni. I don't know what I want to do for a career just yet. So, hey, make some money doing something I kind of enjoy. And Cert 3, Cert 4 was kind of like a bit of a, cakewalk type thing. It was not very comprehensive. It was pretty easy. And then I met a coach who I said, I should probably hire you, because if I'm going to do this, I should see what it's actually like to be trained by someone. And He blew me away. Like his assessment, admittedly now, it was totally over the top, like 2 hours of assessment, but the amount of stuff he knew about the human body, how it worked, how to train properly, I just felt like a total white belt going to their first jiu-jitsu class, just getting choked the hell out straight away. And I didn't want to get choked out again. So I basically, from that point, I was like, you know what, there's so many things to know here. Let's get into it and try and study and learn as much as I can about all of it. So I was always interested in it, but until I saw how much I didn't know how much I was interested in it.
Mate, it's funny you say about the Cert 3, Cert 4, because obviously, it's pretty piss weak at the moment. And when I went through it, everyone used to say, oh, it used to be better, like back in the day. But I think it's got progressively, from what I understand, it's got progressively a lot easier. So you probably had a pretty good course in comparison to now, where they, just absolutely rush you through it. It's kind of like mental. It's a mental
year.
Yeah. So I did mine in a month.
Yeah. So it's the quality, and we're going to say the quality. Let's say this, the quantity of information, like in a month versus a year, like you just can't compare the two.
It was not. I remember when I first became a trainer, so I was playing like low level rugby league. I kind of have a similar story to you. I thought I was going to be a professional rugby league player, but everyone just did my strength and conditioning program I did at Manly. That's what everyone did.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
And mate, you've had a really broad range of expertise and skills and experience over the years. I guess, what are probably some of the highlights you've had in the industry over the last, 19 years?
From an educational perspective, and that perspective, well, I was lucky enough to intern with a guy who'd won the International Trainer of the Year in 2001 when I started in 2003. So we can probably work out how many years it's been now. It's maybe 21 years. But anyway, that's how long it's been. I have no idea. So I was lucky to intern with him, and he had interned with like Paul Chek. So he was really huge back in the day with corrective exercise and movement strategies. He'd interned with Poliquin. He'd interned with Vern Gambetta. So Poliquin with strength and conditioning, Vern Gambetta for athletic performance, and then Olympic lifting coaching. So I was able to really get dig my fingers into all the work that those guys did. I just went straight to the sources. Like I went and interned with Poliquin in America. I interned with Czech everywhere. I interned with a whole bunch of people, Gray Cook, all the FMS people. I also went down the alternative health route, which is kind of like what anyone who studies at Paul Chek at any time ends up doing. So looking at, more alternative approaches to health, we'll just call them that for lack of a better word. And then also went down the, University of Bachelor of Exercise and Health Science. So I've done all the different directions that you can kind of take in the fitness industry, and tried to combine everything I've learned from the really science-based stuff, taken more of the communication and mindset, psychology stuff from the alternative health stuff, because they do that really well for a lot of people, and then all the strength and conditioning performance stuff, and then put it together into a framework that works for general population clients, for gyms, for online coaches. Because I ran my own gym, like we had 400 members, semi-private PT for 5 years, turning over 7 figures. I was able to take all that, put it into one place to actually use it with 400 different people, which all had different results and different goals.
Mate, I just love the broad range of training you've done, because the industry as a whole at the moment has a massive issue where everyone thinks that sales and marketing is their biggest problem. And I think honestly, it's like people like me who exacerbate that issue. But when I was first a trainer, I did nowhere near the amount of the study that you did. But for like the first 3 years, all I'll do was like training, nutrition courses. I did a lot of Poliquin stuff where you actually I believe 10 years ago, people focused on becoming a better trainer, right? Rather than now, people focus on how do they get really good at Facebook ads to grow, which I think is really, really damaging to the industry. One of the best things I think that I did was actually work as a trainer for like 4 to 5 years before I opened a business. But now, especially with the online, you can just start an online business tomorrow, which is scary, to be honest. So I think a big takeaway for you guys is, always focus. You do have to be a better business owner, guys, but you've got to be focusing on, how you improve your skills and, hiring mentors to actually get people amazing results. And Paul, mate, you do a little bit of work with people within our Mamba program and Inner Circle and things like that. What type of, client do you work with? The people like Trent that come to you for, getting amazing results with their clients?
Cool. So yeah, I still work with general population and athletes at the moment as well. So I kind of have two things I'm juggling at both times. So like the athletes, I'm working with triathletes, physique competitors, broken people, etc. With the Mamba Inner Circle type people, my main things that I teach are skill development. So how to be better, get better results. So with Trent, for example, a lot of it is creating solutions for his clients who have a little bit more complicated needs, just to sum that up in the quickest way possible. And then with the rest of the guys, just kind of looking at how their systems are delivered, how they onboard their client for the first 28 days, what they miss in terms of program design, where they can get better in terms of program design and nutrition coaching, but how can they deliver that in a way that doesn't take them out of the business at all, but it scales their time investment relative to the money that they make, so they can actually go, hey, you know what? This is a better way of doing it. I can make more money for less time and help people in a more effective manner. Because a lot of coaches, it's kind of like with the online space, for example, your nutrition coaching, what were your macros today? And if someone's not skilled in macro measuring, like actually doing it properly and has experience of it, they just get confused, overwhelmed, and they don't get any good results because they're like, screw it, I'm just going to have a pizza. I don't know what I'm doing anyway. Whereas if we can work out how to individualize each level of the client program to that client's level of expertise and still deliver it in a repeatable way, that way you get the best of both worlds. You get really good training results and training outcomes with a business that is systematic, scalable, and then also teachable. So that's what I do with all the Mamba guys and stuff like that.
Mate, I love that you do that, because I think at the start of my journey as a personal trainer, I made things too complicated for people in their first 4 to 6 weeks, where I'm like, this is best practice that they need to do. But I found more commonly that it was just so overwhelming for those individuals where they'd instantly, they'd kind of freak out and then just stop. So I love that you have the customized levels. And we do a lot of people in the fitness industry, as do like a 28-day or a 6-week to get people started. And guys, what we're going to cover today is just some 3 basic things that you can do to help with retention and also client results. But based on your experience, Paul, why is it kind of important to get someone a positive result in their first 4 to 6 weeks whilst you're coaching them?
Cool. So with that, that's something that, I've come up with a little bit of pushback from a lot of coaches, because everyone hears me talk about things like sustainability, scalability with their clients and long-term results. And yet I push people to get a quick result. And people are like, but that's the opposite of sustainability. I'm like, it's not. It drives sustainability. So, momentum creates more momentum. It's like, when in business, if you make like 3,000 on Monday, the rest of the week is awesome.
Yeah.
Because you're pumped up on what you're doing. But if you make nothing on Monday to Thursday, like your Friday sales, like, thank God I'm not going to, I'm not total failure. So you need to get fast victories with your clients in multiple ways, because what that also does is it takes care of a really important cognitive bias that people have. So when people think you're an expert in one thing and they think you're really awesome, they think you're really awesome at lots of different things. So if you can solve one problem, you can solve a lot of problems. It's I'm not picking on him as such, but like Jordan Peterson, for example, brilliant at psychology, right? Stupid at diet, stupid shit. Like talking about everyone should just eat meat and salt, and that's it.
Steak and salt. That was kind of. I want to do an episode on carnivore with you. Maybe we can do it next week.
We'll talk about. Carnivore has application for some people, but not all people. But because he is so highly regarded here, if he says something that's not ideal, his followers are still going to listen to him because they think he's here. So if we get our clients' result in food, for example, or a little psychological victory or movement victory, day 1, day 2, within day 7, they actually then trust the program. You need to deliver a victory to get trust. When you get trust, you get buy-in. When you get buy-in, you get adherence, you get results.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, because I obviously love marketing and sales. So, any quick result that you do get does become something that you can market. But also in a sale is one of my mentors first told me when I was doing one-on-one PT is he's like, every session that you do is actually selling the next session in terms of retention. So I found just like helping people get a positive result, no matter how small or big, actually help them become more coachable as well, because they started to believe in the process a little bit more. And look, no one wants to hear, oh, it's going to take 52 weeks for you to reach your goals and things like that. It's such a big timeline. And mate, you talk a little bit with your first point on how to get small victories with food during someone's first 28 days. What do you mean by that?
Cool. So my first pillar and principle of getting someone a result in the first 28 days to 6 weeks is we want to, realistically, we can't elicit a hypertrophy change in the first, couple of weeks, right? There's some small hypertrophy, but it's never going to be noticeable. Strength, absolutely, you can do that because people learn it. But in terms of someone's long-term results, if I go back to that sustainability thing, changing someone's relationship with food, where they don't use it to manage stress, to deal with emotional problems, or as a comfort thing, will change their physique for the rest of their life. So if we can then point out someone's small food-based victories in the first week, 2 weeks, 3, 4 weeks, that leads to that process happening ongoing. So for example, day 1, I get a food journal, or someone sends in the gym, you get a food journal, you get MyFitnessPal, you get photos of the food. It doesn't matter how you deliver it, as long as the client does it. And say week 1, the worst one I ever had was a client who would have Doritos for breakfast every day.
Doritos?
Doritos.
How good. Doritos, I love Doritos.
They're amazing. They're amazing. But they're not a breakfast
crazy. That's kind of not so. But anyway, so they had Doritos.
Yeah. And what we did was I do a coaching technique called specific, impact, change, or continue. So I point out the specific when I look at someone's food journal. I ask them for the impact of what it has on their results, and I ask them if they want to change it or continue. So specific, hey, Jimmy, I noticed having a big pack of Doritos at breakfast every morning. How's that affecting your training? How's it affecting your recovery? How's it affecting your weight loss, your digestion, blah, blah, blah. So get the client to actually admit, this is shit. This is bad for me. And then do you want to change or continue? Then she did, but you, Jimmy, you pick a new breakfast or a new option to go for. My job is just to be your cheerleader and say, that's unreal. And then what we do is we look at 2 weeks later, it's like, Jimmy, man, you're now having oats and protein powder for breakfast. 2 weeks ago, you were having freaking Doritos, man. How do you feel? And then you point out to the client, you ask them as many questions as you can. How's your sleep changed? How's your digestion changed? How's your gut health? Whatever it is, digestion, gut health, same thing. But you basically get the client to facilitate a change themselves, ask them how that change has impacted them. And then it's always like when you have that aha moment, when you go, shit, that's what I've been doing wrong the whole time. It's so much more impactful when someone's standing over the top of you calling you an idiot. Yeah. And you realize you're an idiot yourself and you're the cause of the problems. You have that realization, and then it creates real change. This client will now look at that small food-based victory and go, oh my God, I was doing something absolutely terrible. Now I'm actually doing something cool. I can do this. and it creates that positive momentum for the next thing.
And when you're coaching someone that through that, Paul, so just say, for example, I was having Doritos, do you kind of give them a couple of different options of what they could choose, or do you let the client choose? And as long as it's better and positive, you stick with that. How much you go? Because obviously Doritos to oats and proteins, like a pretty good change. It's like perfect, right? But say, how do you kind of coach people through that? It's very interesting.
So with that, we've look at like the theory of motivation. Like people need autonomy over things, they need intrinsic motivation, and they need competence or mastery, and that drives intrinsic motivation for the long term. So if someone's a level 1, which is a beginner client in my eyes, or a level 2 and intermediate, I'll let them make suggestions, and unless it's totally stupid, I won't step in.
Like going from Doritos to barbecue chips, you'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. But if it's better, you'll roll.
Yeah, if it's better, I roll with it. And the difference if it's a level 3, so someone doing a physique prep or whatever, I give them a quick uppercut because they're having Doritos at breakfast, and I say, you're eating this, and they get a meal plan. But that's a separate context. So as long as they do well, and then what we do is for the next part of it, 28 days, 6 weeks, we just go to, next time I see the food journal, cool. Jimmy, I've noticed now that you've gone from Doritos at breakfast to having some yogurt and granola. That's amazing. Now your next thing is I notice that you're having 12 beers at night, and then the person will make that change from that. So if they go from 12 beers to 6 beers, I'm their biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
So the process is get one and then choose the next limiting factor. Once you've got one, choose the next limiting factor. And then like within 4 weeks, you knock off 4, 6 huge limiting factors. And there's also kind of like the health halo effect. So as soon as you make one positive choice, you start looking for other positive choices. So the client psychology started to shift anyway.
Mate, I love it. It's do you know that company Eat This, Not That? Do you remember that? So when I was a trainer, so I haven't been a trainer now, Paul, in about 5 years, but when I was a trainer, they were really big. They had this cool Instagram page where it was like, and instead of eating a Big Mac, eat this. So it's kind of like, it's kind of pretty similar, but a little bit different. You've done a lot of study around psychology, hey? How did you do some, formal education on that, or is it something you've picked up? Because it's quite impressive.
A bit of both. So I've done halfway through a degree in psych as well. I do uni full time as well as doing all of this because I tend to be a glutton for punishment, which I can't help myself.
Just a forever learner you are, hey? You love it.
I think it's just overactive brain. But then also real overactive and don't know how to relax and shut down, which is a problem in itself, but that's another episode. I find like after doing all the Poliquin stuff and check stuff for probably the first 10 years, exclusively focusing on the really nuts and bolts, numbers, facts, figures, biomechanics side of things, I found I was talking to my clients up here and they were listening to me down here and the results were here. I was like, I'm talking like this is mad stuff I'm talking about. Like, oh my God, you don't know what your mean corpuscular hemoglobin is doing to you and your signs of hydration. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Paul? I'm like, water is good. How could you get more water into your diet, Jimmy? And basically when I started seeing that was what was holding me back. I was all up here. And then I was getting clients because I was good, but my adherence to stuff wasn't as good as it could be because it was like, I had to address the human in the room. And unfortunately for me, this sucks. I'm really good facts, figures, technical stuff. I wasn't as good with the human in the room, like interpersonal relationships, all that stuff. So I dived into that both formally and then also reading books and articles and studies and journals to learn about how to actually communicate with people better to do this better.
It's quite amazing because, we've known each other for, a couple of months now. And I think you have very good human skills, the way that you connect, the way that you understand. So obviously that was probably potentially a bit of an issue for you at some stage, but you've really improved that an absolute ton. And mate, the next ones what we're working through is making sure, guys, that their movement quality is improving and also they're managing pain. So talk to us a little bit about that and why it's important in someone's first 28 days.
Cool. So this is the problem with F45 and other like gyms who have no screening process. They don't have a freaking screening process. People get hurt. People drop out. They don't get results. Gym gets sued or should get sued, but it doesn't. If people have pain, no one ain't doing anything when they got pain. People are It's not like in the 1800s where someone would lose half their leg and they'd keep working on the farm. When we have pain now, we just stop. And if someone has a subjective experience of associating exercise with pain, exercise equals bad, equals poor performance. So for us as coaches, what we have to do is screen movement, work out what someone can do in the gym, what they can't do yet. I always say can't do yet because I don't want to put a limitation on them, and what they need to do. And we just basically orient the program in the first 4 weeks around what they can do really well without problems and what they need to do. And by the end of the 4 weeks, what they can't do yet should be a can do.
Yeah.
Once you do that, that's literally it, because for most people, pain is something that's very subjective. So we can't really define it like with a very concrete thing, except it hurts. Once we get them out of pain and doing stuff that they enjoy and that they feel good, they're going to get better results anyway. So if you can point out to someone from day 1 to day 28, they come in, they're like, oh yeah, I got back pain. And then on day 28, you ask them, how's their back? It's like, oh, it's fine. I haven't noticed it. A lot of people don't even know they're not in pain anymore. And you go, oh, interesting. You said actually 8 out of 10 pain when you started here. It's like, oh shit. And that aha moment, it's like literally the same thing with the food. Everything is aha moments.
Yeah. And so guys, Paul mentioned F45. So we don't have a problem with F45, BodyFit, BFT, all those franchises. So they have an amazing part of the fitness industry, but what is fundamentally incorrect is where you let someone train without doing a movement screening. That is so negligent on the client, and also it affects your class retention, all those kind of different things. It's where, so Paul, you mentioned you did a semi-private model, and I imagine that was for the levels of customization. Is that why you kind of went down that route?
Yeah, so one-on-one was easy to do, but with semi-private,
I love one-on-one.
It's great. It's so much easier to coach people. Like it's easier than semi-private. Semi-private takes more skill, but one-on-one you can get more nuance. So they both have their advantages. So when someone would come into the gym for a sale, they'd be sold on the phone, they'd come see me, I would do a movement screen. And in that movement screen, because I didn't have to do a phone sale, I didn't have to do a sale or any conversion type stuff, they're already paid. I would actually solve their movement screen in the appointment. So I created an algorithm where I do the screen, I do a couple of other tests, and I'm like, cool, you need to do this. And we do the exercises right then and there. And the client would then redo the test, and all of a sudden they'd pass it and they'd be like, oh, what the shit, you're a genius. And then from there it was like, cool. From that point, we created a small victory, consult. So that client thought, oh, cool, Paul can get us, or DC Health can help us, deadlift without any back pain, like so quickly. Of course, we're going to lose fat, build muscle, and look awesome naked. So it was just creating those small victories day one, moving really, really quickly into them.
And guys, I think an important, thing to think about is that your business has strengths and it also has weaknesses, whether you're online or face-to-face, is just making sure you screen people and you're actually selling them the right service for them. And that's why in time you'll have maybe some large group, one-on-one, semi-private and things like that. Just because if someone with like really bad knees and previous, surgeries and things like that, they might not be able to train in the groups right now, right? Because of their pain, but they can potentially in the future. You've just got to make sure that you look after the client's best interests rather than just signing someone up and making them hate fitness for a very long time. And mate, I love the last point you have, which is recognition of clients' psychological changes. So that's something that I've actually never heard about until we kind of chatted a bit before this episode. So what would that kind of, look like during someone's, first 28 days with a coach?
So in a check-in for a client, and you said this in our little chat, all in-person and online businesses should run client check-ins. Because you want to know. And once someone's good at their check-ins, they get their results. So it's a win. With the check-in, I like to check for a level 1 client and potentially a level 2, how they're doing psychologically. So questions like, what do you need to start, stop, and continue this week to get towards your goals? And that can apply to business as well, just as easily as fitness. What was your biggest struggle this week? What are you most proud of achieving this week? These types of questions can be contrasted from week to week to see where someone's going. And they can then also be contrasted with the records that you keep in your business of how many sessions someone does, how many workouts they get done, etc. So if someone says week 1, what do you need to start, stop, continue? I need to stop sleeping in the morning and get to the gym 3 times a week, right? And then the first week, they only get 1 or 2 sessions in. If by week 4, they're doing 5 sessions a week, you can literally point out and say, Jimmy, you started on week 1, you were struggling to get to the gym once or twice a week. Now you're here 4 or 5 days a week. That's awesome. And that's basically a shift in their identity. So you've basically gone from someone who, I struggle to go into the gym to I get to the gym every day. And that shift and getting the client to recognize that, or even something like, I used to eat for comfort. So some clients would say, after work each day, they'd have a bowl of ice cream. Now they go for a walk after dinner. That's a huge shift in their psychology. And it's also a huge shift in their physiology. So you literally point out, hey, Jimmy, on week 1, you're having ice cream after dinner every night and drinking a few beers. Now you're in bed by 9 o'clock after you're doing your wind down routine. That's a huge shift in who you are. And when you can point it out to someone, they're like, oh, again, it's the aha moment. You get that aha moment, you then get buy-in, you then get retention and referrals.
And mate, I absolutely love this because obviously, we're focusing heavily on the coaching aspect. But guys, everything that Paul just said, if you're able to point that out, is the best sales tool and script you can ever have. Focusing on those small wins and things like that, because I'm sure you've had the same, Paul, is sometimes clients don't realize how well they're doing. You know what I mean? With those changes, they just kind of, because it's their everyday life. So being able to point it out gives them a real sense of satisfaction and growth. We used to have a thing at Code 5 is celebrate wins, no matter how big or small, where we'll try and focus on those things. I remember one of my most proudest wins as a coach was getting someone, I had a client named Frank. He was having 9 coffees a day and we got him down to 1. And that was like massive for his life and energy levels and things like that. But mate, just finally, so for the guys who have, watched and listened along, you've got a couple of takeaways, some actual things that you could implement within your business. And the first one you mentioned, just tracking some metrics or seeing some positive results in a food journal. So what would that look like in a real world scenario for a coach?
Cool. So in real world, Chris, I would still submit this on digitally. Like you're going to submit it digitally with MyFitnessPal chronometer or even just a Google form, literally showing someone, hey, a screenshot of week 1 versus week 4.
Yeah.
Saying week 1, you were having Doritos for breakfast. Now you're having protein oats. Week 1, you were 100 kilos. Now you're 95. Your waist measurement has gone down from whatever it is to whatever it is. Here's 3 or 4 victories that you've had. And if they don't have a victory in one category, guess what? You admit it. You don't need to show them what they haven't succeeded in yet. Give them that, done. If you get that across the board, the client then sees it. If they see it, they then love it. And then they go, oh, I can keep doing this. So really simple to do. It's literally a screenshot, send it to them or just point it out to them and go, hey, look, you were doing this. Now you're doing that. Do you think you've changed? It's a yes. You have to say yes.
Yeah, just as like visual for them. And mate, so guys, I'm doing a bit of coaching with Paul. So watch this space. Guys, watch this space. But you do in here, I saw in our little app, so you do bi-weekly measurements and monthly photos. So is that like a simple metric for you to have a look at people's, change both numbers and visually as well?
Yeah. So, and I can change the frequency on that based on what I'm looking at for that client. So if it was a general population, so I got to actually adjust yours a little bit with the measurements. I think bi-weekly is plenty. With photos, I actually prefer doing them weekly. Some people don't love having their photo taken weekly because you're not a general pop level 1 client. I'm probably going to move you to every week because when you look at photos, you can actually see if there's hypertrophy by looking at muscle insertion points. See, that's the quickest way to see fat loss or muscle gain. But with general pop clients, I like the photos because they say, this is how you look on day 1. This is how you look on day 28. And they can see like, for example, the lower back comes in a ton because they've lost fat from their lower back. And that is such a good thing. What I like doing is actually escalating the frequency of measurement over time, though. Because if you show the good victories up front, so again, do things quickly. If things go bad later or don't go as expected, it's not as psychologically scarring because they already know how far they came.
Yeah.
So, and then I teach over time as well, of course, saying, results aren't linear. The initial part of training, all results are fairly linear, but after a while, life gets in the way and shit happens. It allows people, as they get more comfortable, like ideally, I would love having everyone doing scale daily, measurements weekly, pictures weekly, and like once weekly blood glucose and blood pressure monitoring. But people need time to work up to that. I'm a nerd. I said that. But we build them up to that. And once someone does that, then they're comfortable with it. It just becomes part of their daily check-in, and then it teaches them how to adjust their food journal for the rest of their life without me having to do it.
And I really like photos because, people have those, surface level goals. I want to lose weight. I want to lose fat. I want to add muscle. And I think I learned this it might have been off Poliquin or someone, but it all leads into looking better naked. That's what everything fucking leads into in the end, for the average person. So that's why, I think photos are pretty simple. And mate, say if they did want to focus on the, movement quality and the pain management, what would that look like in a real world example for a coach?
Cool. So real world, basically there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can use the metrics in there in your training recording. So your training app, whether it's Team Builder, Trainerize, My True Coach, and someone may start week 1 deadlifting an 8 kilo kettlebell off 2 blocks. Now they're doing 60 kilo for 3 sets of 5. Showing someone that the progress is undisputable. Video is another one. So videoing their first rep, where their first ever time they deadlift, where their back's rounded, they look like the Harbour Bridge. It's disgusting. And then week 4, again, they're pulling their shoulders pulled back, lats are tight, good arch and lumbar spine. And that kind of stuff shows someone, holy shit. With my online clients, I get them to film everything. So if I'm being a real pain in the ass to someone, I'm going to say, all right, for week 1, if I don't think they can train in particular, they don't have experience, if I talk a lot, I say, I want 1 set of every exercise for your first week. And what I'll do is then, and it's a bit time consuming, and a lot of online coaches struggle with this. It should be time consuming for the first couple of weeks as you learn how that person works. And then the time drops down dramatically in your coaching because they're doing it right then. If their deadlift looks absolutely terrible, but then I can give them some coaching cues. Next week they do that. And it's very easy to grab week 1's video, week 4's video, send it to the client and go, look how much you've gotten better. And that's the simplest way to do it.
I really like the exercise feedback you can get online, because I came from being a one-on-one coach. So I was very much like, the only way to get better at doing deadlift is to have a one-on-one coach. And I was very, in my life, I've made a lot of mistakes for thinking that that's the only way in the world. And then anyways, I was doing a bit of powerlifting for a while. And I had an amazing online powerlifting coach, and the level of detail he went with an app, I think he used Coach's Eye, was I was just like, this is so much better than any one-on-one PT session I've ever had. But it was just purely because of the quality of the coach. Like, he knew absolutely everything. So definitely in an online or a face-to-face, environment, is just focusing on those improvements in any movement quality is really important, because we want to set people up to train well and safely for life, and not, make injuries worse or blow out their back. And mate, just finally, on the recognition of the psychological changes, what's just like one thing a coach could do to start to move forward and get some positive action on that with their clients?
Quickest way to answer it is put start, stop, continue into your check-in form, and what's your biggest struggle? And then contrast that to 4 to 6 weeks later. If their biggest struggle is getting to the gym, and then their biggest struggle is not being able to like saying the biggest struggle this week is haven't been able to get to the gym, to this week, biggest struggle is having sore quads. That's a huge change. My biggest struggle is I can't sit down in the toilet. So you can't sit down in the toilet because you achieved goal 1. You overcame that first hurdle. So basically just getting people to be aware of where their problems have changed, because there's always going to be problems. It's just, what's the scale of the problem? And does it relate to them actually getting to the gym, or does it relate to them actually, doing too much at the gym? Or are they, for example, with food, I need to stop binge eating. Now I need to make time to meal prep. It's such a huge change, like psychologically, for someone to be aware of.
Mate, I absolutely love it. So, mate, thank you so much for jumping on. Say if someone did want to reach out, say hello and connect with you, where would be the easiest place to do that?
Facebook or the gram. So Meldrum _performance_coach, I think, is my gram thing, or just Paul Meldrum. Look me up on Facebook, and I'm very, very responsive to all kind of questions that people have.
Easy. Thank you so much, mate.